Welcome to Nutrition Nutz, where we explore breakthroughs in nutrition science, wellness trends, and dietary supplements. You'll hear from industry leaders, health practitioners, and research scientists giving you cutting-edge insights and actionable tips for living your healthiest life. I am your host and also head nut, Jim Wilk, certified nutritionist. Thanks to our main sponsor, HollyHillVitamins.com, the place for great selection, service, and prices. Welcome, all my fellow nutrition nuts. Well, today I'm excited to have back naturopathic medical doctor Mark Stengler. Dr. Stengler and I have done a few shows over the years, and I've always found them to be informative and enlightening, and I hope today will be no exception. Dr. Stengler received his doctorate of naturopathic medicine from the National University of Natural Medicine. He also has a Master's of Science in Human Biology from Liberty University. Additional degrees include a Master of Religious Studies and a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Arts. In addition, Dr. Stengler has a certificate in Advanced Metabolic Endocrinology from the Metabolic Medical Institute. He has completed coursework in Logic and Reasoning from Oxford University. He is also the author and co-author of more than 20 books, including one of my favorites, the best-selling Prescription for Natural Cures, also Outside the Box Cancer Therapies, and Healing the Prostate. He has published several peer-reviewed medical journals, including the International Journal of Family and Community Medicine, Endocrinology and Metabolism International Journal, and also the Journal of Nutritional Health and Food Engineering, and Alternative Therapies in Health and Medicine. He was voted in 2021, Doctor of the Decade by the International Association of Top Professionals. He has served on a medical advisory committee for the Yale University Complementary Medicine Outcomes Research Project. And he and his wife, Dr. Angela Stengler, they run the Stengler Center for Integrative Medicine, Encinitas, California. So if you're in the area, got to go see him there. So today, I think we're going to discuss adrenal and thyroid support, and hopefully maybe touch on some anti-aging stuff, which is such a growing field these days. He is also associated with Emerald Labs, and the cool thing about Emerald Labs is that they're an additive-free supplement company. We're going to go into a little bit about that. There's so many companies on the market that he uses these formulations in his, well, he's actually the formulator for most of their products, and he uses them in his practice. So we're going to go over some of those and talk about some of the trademarked ingredients and why the company, in my opinion, is one of the better ones out there. So hang in there, and here's Dr. Mark Stengler. And on the line, as promised, we have Dr. Mark Stengler. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Mark. I appreciate it. We go back a long ways and done a few old radio shows together, and I'm really thrilled to have you on here today on the podcast. And you're out in California, and got to get out there one day and see. I wish we had a Stengler clinic here on the East Coast here.
I hear you.
Definitely be one. You have to just spread out a little bit more. I've talked about a few of the books that you've written in the past, and I see you came out with a new publication on the gut biome. And can you explain a little bit what went into that?
Yeah, my new book is The Holistic Guide to Gut Health. And what I do in the book is I really go through the science, for the layperson, how the gut really affects every organ system, every cell in the body. We know there's this connection, between your gut and your brain, your skin, your eyes, your muscles, joints, heart, liver, immune system, everything. And so to be healthy, as you know, a lot of this is influenced by the gut, which is the gatekeeper. So in the book, I do focus a lot on the small intestine and the real concept of leaky gut. And then, of course, I get into the microbiome as well. And then, again, how you can understand the connection between your body and the gut, as well as obviously digestive problems, but then how to repair the gut health through diet and supplements and stress reduction and things like that.
I heard recently that some of the medical field, the traditional medical field, allopathic medicines, they don't really think of leaky gut as a real problem out there, or they don't like the name or something. How do you feel about that there?
Well, it's interesting. So what I did in the book is I went through and I quoted from major medical journals who acknowledged leaky gut was real. For example, like one reference, I reference Frontiers in Immunology, also very mainstream.
Right.
And here's a quote from them. Disruption of the epithelial barrier increases intestinal permeability, resulting in leaky gut syndrome. So I took all these major medical journals and I quoted them in there because, I hear the same thing. I even quoted a quote from Harvard who acknowledged leaky gut was real. So yeah, it's actually in the literature pretty good.
That must be frustrating, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have your clinic, you run along with your wife Angela there, and how long you been doing that now in the clinic?
Yeah, I'm just finishing my 29th year.
Oh, gee, goodness gracious. That's great. And it's thriving, I hope. And
yeah, we're doing well.
Good,
doing well.
Good.
In spite of the California economics and everything else going on here, we're doing good.
Good. Well, we're here going to be talking about a company that I really enjoy having or participating with. It's called Emerald Labs. And I'd like you to discuss, I know you do a lot of the formulations for them, and I will go into that. Tell me something a little about the company and why did you decide to align yourself with them?
Yeah, so Emerald Labs, I actually connected with the owner, Rick Simpson. Boy, I think we're hitting probably 17, 18 years ago. And I found we were very like-minded. So we had the Emerald Labs and they do their own manufacturing. But what attracted me to their company was they really were the leaders in making hypoallergenic formulas. So, as a holistic doctor, we're also very sensitive about chemicals and purity of ingredients and all that. And well, in my opinion, the supplement world is much better than the pharmaceutical world. There is a variation in the quality of supplements out there, which we all know. And so I found, wow, Emerald's really the leader in hypoallergenic, not using like binders and fillers and dyes and soy and sugar and gluten and all that. I'm like, wow, this is exactly what I focus on with my patients. So we really resonated on that level. And then the fact that they were open to creating formulas that we would use as holistic doctors with patients, meaning things have studies behind them, human studies. We're using the same types of concentrations of extract, the same doses of studies, being more comprehensive, more clinical. And between those two things, that's where we really hit it off together. And so I've been working with them, I think, almost 15, 20 years now.
Yeah, I recall his integrity. It's rare to see. He's so particular about what goes into his products that he'll do processes, that folks, there's a lot of manufacturing processes out there for making supplements and stuff. He does it I wouldn't want to say the old fashioned way, but he does it. Speed is not important to him. And it's the quality and the reason why a lot of other companies use binders and fillers and things like that, because it makes the process easier, but not necessarily better. And I always admired that about him.
No, you're exactly right. And that's why, so like when they are manufacturing supplements, they cannot do the large runs at a time like other companies because it is more an involved process and the speed will be slower. But that's what we have to do to have, the highest quality and purity. So you're right. You understand that perfectly.
Yeah. And all the trademarked ingredients that he uses. Explain to people what that means when you see a trademark ingredient in a supplement.
Yeah, generally with the trademark ingredients, these are, say herbal extracts or other nutrients, which have human studies on them, published peer-reviewed human studies, and then they're trademarked. And so we're always in our formulas or, our combination formulas and single ones too, we are using ingredients which have human published studies behind them. We want to make sure these things work in the right dose and concentration and the safety and all that. And so you'll see these trademark ingredients. Yes, they cost the manufacturers more money, but we want to guarantee we're using things that have been proven to work. We don't want theoretical things. We want things we know work. So that you'll see those in our products for sure, a lot of trademark ingredients which have had the studies done on them. Whereas, a lot of companies, they may use maybe the same herb or nutrient. It's not exactly the same. It doesn't have the human studies. Could it work? Yeah, it could, but will it work as good? Maybe not.
Right, exactly. And I might have known this, but I have to apologize. I've forgotten it. Do you know why it's called Emerald? Why did he use that term?
That's a good question. I don't recall. I should know the answer to that. I'm going to find out.
I mean, he doesn't look Irish to me for some reason. I don't
No.
know. That's
I think
cute.
looks more like British to me, but that's a good question. I'll have to check that out.
All right. So let's get into a little bit here. I see a lot of clients and all of a sudden, and I don't know if you've noticed this, people are actually asking for methylated products out here, methylated nutrients. And I'd like you to put it again into layman's terms there, also for myself, because I'm no scientist. Let's talk a little bit about the methylation process and why it's important. Why does Emerald Labs use some of these methods?
Right. Well, methylation is a biochemical term, and it basically means in our cells, there's all these biochemical processes occurring, thousands of reactions per second, really. And so one of the things that occurs in our cells is called methylation, which is a fancy way of saying you're taking a carbon and 3 hydrogen and it's being attached to different molecules. And what that allows to happen in biochemistry, it allows for energy to be produced. It allows your detoxification pathways to work properly. It allows your body to make hormones and neurotransmitters. So obviously very fundamental processes in the body. And methylation, it requires different nutrients, requires things like magnesium, for example, but it really requires B vitamins, B12, folate, the natural folate, and B6 and some B3. So when you get supplements like these B vitamins, you can get them in their methylated form, which means they're in the form which when you take them, absorb them into your bloodstream, go to your cells, they're ready for your cells to use. When you use like synthetic B vitamins, let's say like folic acid, which is a man-made attempt to duplicate naturally occurring folate like you find in foods, say like in oranges, beans, and things like that. And so because it's a little bit different structure, it has to go through a series of metabolisms in your cells to be in its active final form. So obviously, if you're one of these 60% of the population where our genes are such where we really have some issues trying to take those synthetic B vitamins and then processing them into their active final form, well, we need to bypass that. And that's what Emerald, I think, is one of the first to do it and always have done it for many, many years. And using like methylated B vitamins, so like the methylcobalamin B12, the methylfolate, et cetera. And so then your cells can utilize them right away. And then that can help in things like your mood and your energy and your detoxification and hormone balance and all that, and even your immune system function.
And how does the genes play a role in this? They say in the United States, there's like half the people, they inherit that normal gene, but a lot of them have a weaker variations of it. How does that come into play?
Yeah, so we all have these, methylation genes. The one we're referring to more is like MTHFR. There's 2 primary types of it. I won't get into the details, but yeah, about half of the population, the way our genes are, if we're using synthetic B vitamins, there can be issues. There can be problems metabolizing our cells so we can get the benefits from it. So then if we use the methylated form where it doesn't have to go through all these different steps to be processed, so to speak, final active form, then our cells then can use those B vitamins and make the energy and help the detoxification systems, help our cell DNA repair, all these important processes. So in my mind, I mean, why would anyone not want to use methylated B vitamins, which, a lot of the forms, especially like, to be honest, especially things like in the pharmacies and stuff, these cheap B vitamins, they're usually not methylated. So people are not getting the best kinds. And for some people, it's very, very important. For example, if you're a woman and you're, planning to be pregnant, become pregnant, and in half the population have an issue, or maybe you're in the 25% of the population where you have a big problem, where you inherited a variation from both parents, not just one. Well, we know now that predispose you to having birth defects, with your child, or maybe a person prone to depression. Studies have shown that people who have this genetic variation, if you don't get the methylated B vitamins, you're more prone to depression because you can't make like the serotonin, the dopamine, these neurotransmitters, these chemicals that influence our brain. You can't make them effectively, and so the brain can't work by magic. So this can be very important for especially certain people.
How do people go about finding out if they have this gene problem? I guess it's a little easier today than it was years past.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways they can do it. I mean, nowadays there's labs online where you could get the MTHFR gene tested or be under a methylation panel. But the regular labs that doctors use can run it too. The large labs doctors use around the country, it can be run, as well by your general practitioner. So either way, you can do it on your own or have your doctor order it. And you can see. Now, the reason that can be helpful is, let's say you've got one copy. Well, you have some issue, with methylation. You still want to use the, methylated B vitamins are going to be the best. But
right.
If you have two copies, then even more so important, that you're using them and, letting your siblings and or if you have other children and stuff, they should get tested too. Because look, you could prevent a lot of health issues which you don't have to suffer with because it's a simple thing to deal with. And lastly, you could be more prone to having elevation of an amino acid called homocysteine. And when that's elevated in the blood, that is a risk factor for dementia, stroke, and rheumatoid arthritis. And the treatment medically is the same, whether you see a holistic doctor or, a kind of a conventional doctor, the same thing. You give them methylated folate and B12, and that helps the liver to break it down so this protein is not creating inflammation in the bloodstream.
Yeah, folks. So it pays to maybe find out what the family's been going through over the years and see if you get things tested like that. I think it's a great idea. And that homocysteine is kind of like a hidden problem for people that when you get your normal lab work, you don't usually see that. But there are some companies out there that test for that kind of thing also with the inflammation and all that stuff like that. Do you guys do that at your clinic at all? Do you have testing there or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we always do homocysteine as a screening test because we do see it fairly commonly. And again, all the regular labs offer it. So it's just a matter of getting your doctor to run it. Or like I said, nowadays you can oftentimes get labs done on your own too. So everyone should be screened for their homocysteine level because it's a very simple thing to treat, if it's elevated. Very simple with these methylated B vitamins.
Well, inside the Emerald Labs multis, they use the methylated form of the B vitamins, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's new evidence recently in the last year or two about how important multis are, especially for cognitive health. There's some new studies done on that people who take a good multivitamin have less cognitive problems. Have you come across that at all?
Yes, I have. And there has been other studies that have shown that people who have adults who have more adequate levels of B6, folate, and B12 have the lower risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. And so I think a lot of that goes back to this methylation and also not having elevated homocysteine. So you're right. There's been several studies now showing adults and seniors who have more adequate levels versus those who have low levels or deficient, they are more prone to having bad issues. Why not use the methylated when they're available with companies like Emerald?
And that's great about talking to someone who runs a clinic as yourself, that people think that they're eating properly even these days, and we get enough nutrients from the farm there, from the ground. But you're an experience with testing people and things. We're not getting all the nutrients that we could possibly utilize. Yeah, like
very much
in our diet. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very much true. Because with our patients, we do routinely run nutrient levels. Now, we may do limited panels, so things like B12, magnesium, iron, omega-3, things like that. But we have other expanded panels where we check 40 nutrients. And yes, the average person definitely has nutritional deficiencies, and government studies have shown that to be the case. It is always surprising how many patients we see, for example, like with lower B12 levels. B12, like when you become a senior, if you have B12 deficiency, which by the way, statistically is 1 in every 4 seniors, that in itself is a risk factor for dementia. Your brain the studies show your brain actually shrinks when you're deficient in B12. So people may be wondering, why would I be low in B12? Well, it could be because we age, or maybe under stress, or you have chronic illness. You're not producing enough stomach acid, intrinsic factor, stomach to absorb it in your small intestine. Some people avoid red meat completely, which is the main source of B12. Maybe you're on medications which deplete you of B12. Right. Antidepressants, birth control pills for younger people. So anyways, there's many different reasons why we see these nutritional deficiencies. In addition, of course, our foods don't have the levels they did 50 years ago because of the soil being depleted and things like that.
Right. Have you noticed in your clinic vegans are having a problem with B12 sustainability?
Yeah, we do see the B12 low fairly commonly. We also see the omega-3 fatty acids low.
Right.
We don't see the protein levels being low.
Right.
We're taught that in school 30 years ago. We don't see that. But yeah, the B12, the omega-3, we see that very commonly.
Interesting. Very interesting. A couple of things I wanted to discuss today and some hormonal things. And, we get these questions a lot about their adrenals and their thyroid. So we'll talk a little bit about that because I think Emerald makes a fantastic formulas here that you have formulated. And adrenal. I've heard over the years too that some of the mainstream doctors out there, they don't believe in a adrenal fatigue, so to speak. They don't really understand that term or opt to use that term at all. How does one know if their adrenals are working properly or not? I know thyroid, there's tests. We'll talk about the thyroid in a few minutes, but are there tests for their adrenal functions that people can do? And how would they come see you saying, hey doc, my adrenals are exhausted? Well, how do they know that?
Well, there's a few different ways we can test that. First, we can do blood work. We can test adrenal hormones like pregnenolone, DHEA, cortisol, preferably before 9 in the morning, so it can be done with blood. You can do urine tests, which will measure those as well. And then my favorite is saliva testing because we can do multiple samples, say of the cortisol in one day, and just see if it's running low the whole day. I prefer that test. Fine. I think the problem in medicine is things changed in the last 15, 20 years. It used to be you had like a kind of a continuum where someone has healthy adrenals, versus someone is having problems. And then nowadays, basically in medicine, they're like, well, hey, you either have major adrenal disease, which is rare. They call it conditions like Addison's, where you just aren't producing enough cortisol. But all the people left in between, so we have suboptimal adrenal function. You got fatigue, you can't handle stress well, you got sleep problems, you can't handle inflammation, cognitive problems. So if you're kind of caught in between that, they don't really, diagnose it or offer anything. So the people in between, the term adrenal fatigue is used. Maybe a more correct term would be adrenal dysfunction. And so, we see a lot of people help by improving their adrenal function, which is kind of interesting because when you look at the things like in the Emerald Lab's adrenal health, how does it really help the adrenals, these things? Well, in part, they help by establishing a normal communication system between the brain, the pituitary gland, up in the head too, and then to the adrenals. There's this communication network. So when we're under stress or have chronic illness, this messaging system can be off, and then that affects, your adrenal hormones. And so the herbs like rhodiola, ashwagandha, eleutherococcus, also referred to as Siberian ginseng, they actually help to reestablish this normal communication, which then can help to balance out your adrenal hormones. You handle stress better, your energy is better. We got the activated methylated B vitamins in there, which your adrenals do use to make stress hormones.
Right.
So, that's how this all connects here.
Yeah, and I noticed that you again, what we talked about earlier, how Emerald Labs uses trademarked ingredients. They have the sensoril ashwagandha, which has been around for a while, and because again, folks, herbs and things can vary from company to company and batch to batch. And when you're using a trademarked ingredient, it can make a big difference. And you're getting what you pay for, so to speak, right?
Well, it's true. Like if you take in their adrenal health by Emerald, their sensoril ashwagandha. Now, there's 250 milligrams in there per 2 capsules. Now, you may see a formula that says, hey, I've got 300 and 350. Maybe that's better. Well, here's the thing. Most ashwagandha extracts are like a 0.5 to 1% what we call withanolide extract. These withanolides are really what help balance out the communication system, the adrenal stress hormone function, production, and so forth. Theirs is used in the human studies is 8%. So really, it's like if you take 250 milligrams and multiply that by 8, right? So we're getting 8 times the amount. So really, you're getting a lot more, much more than the typical adrenal product. You're getting 7 to 8 times more of these active constituents, which are having basically this balancing effect on your adrenals.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point because a lot of people don't realize it comes down to quality, and you pay for what you get, and that's why you try to look for trademarked ingredients, which Emerald does a great job. Just a reminder, folks, you can go to hollyhillvitamins.com and order that. We could just say code word nuts, NUTZ, and we'll give you 15% off your orders there too. So proud to be a sponsor for Emerald Labs there. And Adrenal Health by them. It's again has that coenzymated B vitamins, which we were talking about earlier. which is, better absorbed in the body there. So you get what you, in your experience, do people notice something within a few days, a week or two? What's the normal type of, I guess there is no normal, but how would you,
Yeah.
how would you retest somebody and what kind of time period there?
Well, I mean, if people have fatigue, and let's say they take Emerald like B complex, yeah, they can notice difference within a few days to a week. Now, on the adrenal, if you look at the studies, say on the Sensoril, you got studies, often they were 30-day studies. And in those 30 days, what do you see? You find people's energy level was better, their sleep was better, their mood was better, and some other factors. So those studies were 30 days. So definitely in 30 days. But that being said, yeah, we see people usually, within 1 to 2 weeks, they notice an obvious improvement in how they're feeling in those different areas.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned earlier, you guys do testing and things, but I've noticed over the years, there's people who specialize in, endocrinologists who specialize in hormones. They're few and far between to find endocrinologists out there. Is that a trend? Are they going away, or they're harder to find? What's going on with that?
Well, the way it is messed around, endocrinologists, it's a problem. If someone actually needs to see one, usually no matter where you are in the United States, usually it takes 3 months to get in.
Right, that's true.
So, yeah, it's a problem. There's not a ton of them. And they serve an important function. However, if you're getting one of these people, say with your adrenals, your thyroid, where you don't have like just overt disease, but you have imbalance, I'm not trying to be negative, but they're pretty much useless in those cases. You're just going to say, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. I'm here more to see people with thyroid cancer and more serious stuff. That's kind of the way it works.
Yeah. Okay. I understand. All right. Let's jump over to thyroid here. Big issue. A lot of people are on medication for thyroid. Has over the past decades or so, is that something that's become more of a problem, less? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I've looked at studies on that, and definitely the amount of people with thyroid dysfunction, definitely it's high. It's high. It's millions of Americans have thyroid issues for sure. And I think there's different reasons for it. Chemicals in the environment for sure, high stress, nutrient deficiencies, other hormones are imbalanced in the body, which affect the thyroid. So all these things combined. And I'd say the other factor is, autoimmunity is very common, unfortunately, in the American population. Our immune system attacks our own tissue, and that includes the thyroid. So, for example, the most common cause of thyroid problems in Americans, called autoimmune thyroiditis, also known as Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Japanese doctor had discovered it. And this is where the immune system attacks your thyroid tissue, and it accounts for 85% of people who develop hypo or low thyroid function and require treatment. So, unfortunately, it's estimated anywhere from 50 million, maybe up to 100 million Americans have autoimmune problems.
Ah, okay. So is the general doctors out there that you go see for your thyroid, they sometimes immediately put you on a synthetic thyroid product like Synthroid or something like that. Is that something that maybe they should see what else is going on before they do that, before people get on the medication? Do some people actually need the medication, or can they get by with some supplements to see if they can correct that problem?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I've looked at the literature, and they have found there are a lot of people, and it's called subclinical hypothyroidism. Okay. What that basically means is people may remember on their blood work, doctors run a marker called TSH, stands for thyroid stimulating hormone.
Right.
And so that hormone can be elevated. Now, some of these people, that's elevated, but they're actual thyroid hormones, which are creating the metabolism in their cells, called T4 and T3, they're not deficient. And so what the research shows is, yes, a lot of these people are given medication, these synthetic medications, but they don't really need it. Instead, what we prefer to do with these people is we put them on, improve their diet, their exercise, their stress, put them on something like the Emerald Thyroid Health. And so the goal of that is to balance out their own thyroid, get their thyroid working better on its own, and the messaging going from the pituitary gland in the brain to the thyroid, helping to balance things out. We also measure their antibodies, their thyroid antibodies. There's two main thyroid antibodies. Now, if those are up, like I said, which is 85% of people with low thyroid, then Emerald has a great product for autoimmune thyroid as well, which we'll use. Yeah, so we want to treat the root level, and so we do that, and then we'll retest a person in like a couple months, and we'll see that their thyroid levels have all balanced out, and they never needed medication. And so once you get on the medication, the problem is your thyroid gets lazy.
Right.
It gets lazy because it gets this replacement. And then what happens? Well, you see these people, you'll see that, they need higher and higher doses from their doctor over time. So that's why we like to use Thyroid Health from Emerald or their Hash Immune Health to balance things out on their own. So in these beginning, especially in the beginning stages, or there's not like severe hormone deficiency, this is the better way to go. Now, there's a second component where we see patients who are on thyroid medicine and maybe they do need it, but we'll still use like the Thyroid Health or Hash Immune to balance out their system better so that they don't need higher doses over time, or maybe could use lower doses, or in some cases may not need thyroid replacement in the future as their doctor is monitoring them. So there's always a place for the nutritional medicine.
What are some of the symptoms of thyroid, and what about the iodine connection with that? Are people getting enough of that in their diets and things?
Well, classic symptoms of low thyroid, and there can be many of them. I mean, there can be like 40 or 50 of them, but class ones can be like you get cold easy, fatigue, poor cognitive function, your metabolism is slowing down, it's harder to lose weight or you're gaining weight. You can get water retention, dry skin. So those are some of the joint pain. Those are some of the classic ones for low thyroid. Now, in terms of iodine is really like the building block of your thyroid hormones. And so, you have to have it. It's an essential nutrient. And there are parts of the world where iodine deficiency is a major problem. It's one of the most common nutrient deficiencies in the world, causes major health problems. But what's happening in America is because so many people have high blood pressure, they're avoiding table salt, where that has been their main source of iodine. Because let's face it, I mean, you can get iodine in eggs and you get it in fish, but what's happening now for some people, because of high blood pressure, they're avoiding iodized salt. And so now iodine deficiency is coming back again in America. And again, you can't make thyroid hormone without it. So it's something that needs to be taken into account. And that's why we have iodine in Thyroid Health with Emerald. Not massive amounts. But iodine's kind of a tricky thing. I mean, if you take the amounts like in the Emerald Multi and their Thyroid Health, it's fine. There's no risk to it. Some people take mega doses of iodine, and that can create imbalances. That can actually trigger autoimmune thyroid. There's some research on that. So some people should be aware of.
And once you're on these thyroid medications, I've been told that it's kind of hard to get off of them. Is that something you have to deal with? Do people come in saying, listen, I'm tired of taking this medication. I have this and that side effect. So that is a possibility of weaning yourself off under supervision of like someone yourself.
Absolutely. In the medical literature, they actually have stated there's a lot of people on thyroid medication that should not be on it.
Right.
So what we do is, like you work with their diet, nutrition, get them on something like the Thyroid Health, the Hash Immune, and then we monitor them. We'll slowly decrease the thyroid medication dose, monitor them in their lab tests, and work to wean them off that in a safe and effective manner. But yeah, it can be done.
Folks, you can always go to emeraldlabs.com and you can see the facilities there and how they do their testing for everything and some of the other products they make. I mean, we can be here for a couple of hours with all the stuff that they do. They're really well known for their multivitamins, like we discussed before, how important they are. And they have it really down to a science where no matter where stage of life you're in and what gender you are, Emerald Labs will cover it. I've gone through their multis with so many people over the years there. And they're always looking for stuff that's additive-free, which is a lot of people are sensitive to these excipients in there. Some people, no problem at all. But if you have any qualms about that, they're the company to go with there. Just to end up with a few things here, Doc, I noticed they came out recently with an anti-aging cellular complex now. I'm at that age where I'm looking for that anti-aging stuff. I'm fighting as much as I can here. So what are some of the ingredients? I see you have the glutathione and the R-alpha lipoic acid and CoQ10 in there. What was the genesis of this product here?
Well, it's true. We want to use things which do fight the aging process. I'm a big fan of glutathione, especially the one that Emerald uses, called the Cetria glutathione, because it's one of the few that has good human published studies showing you absorb it and your blood and saliva levels go up. And so glutathione is so important. It is one of the most important antioxidants in the body. But one of the things I like about glutathione is that it does help to protect your DNA from damage. And as we both know, if your DNA is getting damaged from toxins in the environment and things like that, or medications, then shorten part of your DNA called telomeres, which can shorten your life process, if you will. And also, of course, if your DNA is damaged, you're prone to diseases, cancer and things like that. So I'm a big fan of the glutathione. CoQ10, of course, is a very important antioxidant as well. Resveratrol, that's been shown in studies to help the telomeres, the length of these ends of DNA, which is involved in health and aging. And lipoic acid is a great antioxidant too. And then they have, the unique like phytonutrients. You start looking at these phytonutrients, these extracts from plant foods like pomegranates and other ones. I mean, these things are powerful in terms of their ability to help fight disease. So yeah, it is a nice combination formula.
And just as an add-on, you did mention R-alpha lipoic acid, and I think people do get confused about the synthetic and natural versions of that. They're looking for alpha lipoic, then they see R-lipoic. You could do a quick little thing on that?
Yeah, you're right. So the R-alpha lipoic is the type you'd find in nature. That is the type your body would want. So you're right. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's the way to go, folks. Again, excellent ingredients, trademarked ingredients. This is a nice little adjunct to your regular regime. There's anti-aging. You're not really duplicating anything there. It's a nice little add-on if you want to slow down that old aging process there. Want to keep those candles in the cake there. Also, remember, you go to hollyhillvitamins.com. You mention nuts, NUTZ, and get you 15% off. You can see the whole line on the website there. And you can also go to Emerald Labs. Doc, can people become a patient online with you? They do Zoom calls? What's the story there?
Oh, yeah. We do telemedicine. That is true. We do telemedicine. So at markstengler.com, they can read about it if they want. Yeah.
Yeah, markstengler.com. It's STENGLER. And I wish you'd do another 29 years there,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's congratulations to the longevity there. That's great in this day and age. So I'm happy for you. And if I get out to California, I'll look you up there. Thank you so much for being on the show, Mark. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, guys. Take care, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye now. Please subscribe to the channel so you can get our latest episodes. And if you want to contact me with any questions or comments, try jimwilkcnc@gmail.com. Thanks again.